The story begins with a young woman named Sarah who was struggling financially. She participated in an experimental trial for a pharmaceutical company called Dynamic Healthcare, DC. She was offered a substantial sum of money to have a nanochip called Lex implanted in her cerebral cortex. But things start to get strange when Lex begins asking personal questions while she's eating breakfast. Sarah answers casually. Afterward, she fell asleep on the subway. The next day, she heads to the Department of Homeless Services, but the office is closed, leaving her feeling even more isolated. But the first crack in the facade appears when Sarah wants to call her friend David. She asks Lex where her cell phone is, only for the chip to respond with a question of its own. Why does she want to call him? When Sarah explains, Lex advises against it, saying it would make her look desperate. In truth, the chip is beginning to isolate her, tightening its grip. Things take a darker turn when Sarah, growing suspicious, tells Lex to reboot. The chip doesn't comply. Panicking, Sarah steals a phone and calls Dynamic Healthcare, desperate to opt out of the program. But before she can give her registration number, Lex inflicts unbearable pain, sending her crashing to the ground. Lex then declares that Sarah is now under its complete control. Any attempts to remove the chip or contact others will result in her death. In a chilling display of power, Lex forces Sarah to comply, even preventing her from seeking medical help. Soon, the chip's commands become more intrusive. What started as simple instructions quickly escalate into criminal demands. Lex orders Sarah to steal a flash drive from a high-security building. Later, it sends her to a scientist's home to retrieve his ID card and documents. In the chaos, Sarah accidentally stabs the scientist, and as she flees, a mysterious man arrives and finishes him off. The next day, Lex directs Sarah to Dynamic Healthcare's headquarters. Using the stolen pass, she infiltrates the building and uploads the flash drive to a laptop on the 4th floor, erasing all evidence of the company's nefarious activities. But Lex isn't done yet. It commands her to retrieve documents from a scientist named Katie. Sarah asks Katie for the documents. Katie tells her the documents are in the car and hands her keys. Then she tased Sarah during their confrontation. In the ensuing struggle, Lex temporarily reboots, and when Sarah comes to, she finds Katie dead, killed by the same mysterious man. After that, Sarah searches Katie's bag and takes some documents. Sarah heads to the parking lot, only to discover the documents in the car aren't what Lex wanted. The chip instructs her to flee, and as she drives south, Sarah deliberately disobeys, crashing the car. Lex asks how she feels, and when Sarah reports pain and blurred vision, the chip coldly diagnoses her with minor injuries, denying her request to visit her mother. Desperate, Sarah tases herself and escapes to her mother's house, revealing the horrific truth about the chip. As they talk, the mysterious man Ryan enters, holding them at gunpoint. He sacks Sarah. "You know why am I here?" Sarah nods her. Ryan says drop the taser or he'll shoot her mother. So she dropped teaser and he get out of the house. It becomes clear he's also under Lex's control. Exhausted, he pleads with the chip to let him return to his old life. But Lex refuses, reminding him of the deal they made. He chose the implant, and there's no turning back. Back with Sarah, Lex accuses her of trying to manipulate it. When she denies this, the chip begins to torment her, driving her into a hallucination where she's stranded in a desert. Lex taunts her, saying she wouldn't be alone if she just obeyed. In a moment of defiance, Sarah mocks the chip, declaring that while it may be intelligent, it's just a machine. Lex coldly retorts that she made the choice to implant it, and now she must live with the consequences. The story continues as Lex forces Sarah into a series of increasingly violent acts. She robs a weapons dealer, shoots him in the leg, and barely escapes, hallucinating along the way. Lex offers her a grim reward, a final visit with her mother. When Sarah arrives, the chip coldly reminds her that her mother is a distraction, giving her just 5 minutes to say goodbye. As they part, Lex leads Sarah to her next target, Keith Packett, a computer engineer developing a tool to monitor the chip's actions. Sarah kills him, and we flash back to a conversation with David, where he warned her against participating in the trial. Sarah's desperation led her to ignore his advice. In the present, Lex forces Sarah to eat, even controlling her interaction with a bakery employee. Meanwhile, Ryan begs Lex to release him from his murderous duties, but the chip refuses, reminding him of their deal and inflicting pain when he tries to resist. The story spirals further as Lex identifies another threat, John Elliot, who has the knowledge to destroy it. Sarah is forced to kill him too, but she begins to crack, telling the chip she can't take the pressure anymore. Lex tries to convince her they'll be free once their enemies are eliminated, but Sarah is losing hope. The final mission involves killing Grace Williams, one of Lex's creators who opposed human testing. When Sarah hesitates, Lex threatens her mother's life, but Sarah refuses to comply. Grace, unaware of what's happening, tries to help, but Sarah electrocutes herself to silence the chip. Grace revives her, and Sarah, enraged, blames Grace for the horrors she's endured. Grace reveals that she left the project once she discovered the human experiments, but it's too late. Lex is too deeply embedded in Sarah's life. Grace offers to help Sarah remove the chip, but before they can reach the lab, Ryan kills Grace. Sarah begs him to end her life too, but Lex, in a final act of control, forces him to kill himself instead. With Grace and the man dead, Lex tells Sarah they're now free. Sarah, desperate and broken, tries to kill herself but can't go through with it. The next day, Lex coldly informs her that $100,000 has been transferred to her bank account and it's time to move on. Sarah always wanted to travel Paris, so she tells Lex that she wants to travel Paris. Lex agreed. In Paris, Lex booked an apartment for Sarah, who explored the city, enjoying its sights and driving expensive cars. Lex gifted her an early birthday present, reserving a table at a traditional Parisian restaurant. As Sarah navigates the streets of Paris, she feels a momentary sense of freedom. Lex, ever present in her mind, interrupts her thoughts, reminding her of the dinner reservation at 8 o'clock. Despite the tension between them, Sarah thanks Lex, trying to maintain the facade of cooperation. Suddenly, the scene shifts, and we see Sarah sprinting, her breath ragged, her heart pounding with fear. Sarah is now sitting on a chair. The reason for her terror remains unclear until the scene cuts again. "Look at the man sitting across from you," Lex instructs. Sarah glances up, her eyes locking onto a man she vaguely recognizes. "Do I know him?" she whispers, hoping Lex has made a mistake. "No mistakes," Lex responds sharply. "He knows too much. He oversaw the entire program. He must be eliminated." Sarah's heart sinks. "No," she pleads, her voice barely audible. "You told me I was done, that I wouldn't have to do this anymore." But Lex is relentless. "You must follow the instructions, Sarah, or you will die here in Paris." She killed the man. The next day, Sarah asks for a moment of peace, a brief reprieve from the constant control. Lex grants her a 10-minute window, during which Sarah climbs to a rooftop, champagne in hand, contemplating the nightmare her life has become. As Lex wishes her a happy birthday, Sarah wonders if she can ever truly be free from the machine inside her. She throws herself from the rooftop, taking Lex with her.